morning, and welcome to a classic album review here on Metalben's Chronicles. We're going to get right into this. This album actually had a 40th anniversary a couple days ago. Yes, originally released in the UK on September 20th of 1980 on Jet Records. Originally recorded in Ridge Farm Studios, produced by the band and engineered by Max Norman. I'm talking about the debut album by Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz. We all know it. It's a classic heavy metal album, and basically made its late great guitarist a guitar god. Yes. Lots of back history to this album, lots of controversy to the album too. We're going to get right into it. Let's talk about the back history of this legendary album. Now, notably, I should mention too, this album didn't come out till March 27th of 1981 here in the States. So yeah, a huge gap between UK and US releases when it pertains to this legendary album. And I believe Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake were basically let go before they were going to tour here in the United States. Why it probably took so long for the album to come out here in the States, who knows? But anyways, let's get right into the album. Let's talk about some back history. Okay. Now, as we all know, Ozzy was fired from Black Sabbath by Tony Iommi for excessive heavy drinking. Which, seems kind of weird in a way because the band was battling with addictions all around at the time, be it cocaine, be it alcohol, and be it whatever drug they were putting into them at the time, But yeah, that's pretty much how that happened. I believe at the time, too, Ozzy's father just passed away. So Ozzy went through a really bad, and I'm talking a really bad depression. He definitely hit rock bottom, For anybody who's ever hit rock bottom, it is not a fun place to be. But anyways, yes. So Ozzy would just sit in his apartment all day long and drink himself into a coma. I mean, it was bad. Until one day Sharon LaVey came along. Now, I believe her father managed Black Sabbath. So that's kind of how that relationship kind of ties together, in a way. But Sharon came along, the future Sharon Osbourne, and basically resurrected Ozzy Osbourne's career, So, this Blizzard of Oz band would come into fruition then. Now, Blizzard of Oz actually kind of predates back to the mid-70s. When Ozzy left Black Sabbath briefly back then, I believe he was going to start a solo act and call it Blizzard of Oz. I'm talking around 76, 77, when he left for a brief period and Dave Walker came in for a little bit. But, Ozzy would end up back in Black Sabbath, naturally. But anyways, just a little bit of back history. I believe they had Gary Moore, George Lynch auditioned for guitars for this Blizzard of Oz project band, and both were turned down. Ozzy felt like they didn't fit. Then along came Randy Rhoads. And I'll tell you what, Randy Rhoads came in and literally changed Ozzy's life. Ozzy loved Randy Rhoads. Now, Randy Rhoads came from a glam band called Quiet Riot. Y'all may know who that is. Now, the early incarnation of Quiet Riot was more in the style of, Slade or the New York Dolls, And they would put out 2 albums in the 70s that were only released in Japan, obviously. Quiet Riot 1 in 1977 and Quiet Riot 2 in 1978 on CBS, but only released in Japan, still never released here in America. Or worldwide for that matter. I mean, there's bootleg copies out there I'm sure you can get of it. But anyways, Moving on. So originally they would get a drummer from the band Lone Star Dixie Lee on drums. Bob Daisley, formerly of Rainbow, would come in on bass. You know, you had Don Airey come in on keyboards. And yeah, that basically was the first lineup of the Blizzard of Oz band. You know, Ozzy Osbourne, Randy Rhoads, Bob Daisley, Dixie Lee, and Don Airey. So yeah, moving on now, Dixie Lee would leave after they recorded a 4-track demo with Dixie Lee on drums. And on that 4-track demo, they would have early versions of I Don't Know, Crazy Train, Goodbye to Romance, and You Looking at Me, Looking at You. Early demo versions of those tracks, which are still locked away in the vaults. They've never been released to the public or put on any CD or bootlegged or anything. I don't even think they're on YouTube. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. Maybe one day they'll see the light of day. Who knows? But they're still locked away up in the vault somewhere. And would be the only recordings they did with Dixie Lee on drums. So coming in would be from Tofat, The Gods, and notably for being in the Uriah Heep for several years on drums. I'm talking about Lee Kerslake, who sadly we just lost at the age of 73 years old. Actually, just a day before the 40th anniversary of, you know, the Blizzard of Oz album. You know, we lost Lee Kerslake to prostate cancer, unfortunately. You know, he's definitely going to be missed. One of the greatest hard rock, heavy metal drummers in history. He had a very unique style, and you can definitely hear it on Blizzard of Oz and any past Uriah Heep album or, you know, Tofat or The Gods. Any album he was a part of, you could hear that unique drum style he had. But moving on, you know, yeah, Chris Tangerini's was originally supposed to produce the album, but they basically fired him. Which I don't know why, because he's a phenomenal producer. He passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago, too. But again, one of the greatest metal producers who's famous for producing Anvil, Judas Priest, and a bunch of other artists, too. But them are the two that come to mind when I think of Chris Tangerini's. So yeah, they decided to basically produce the album themselves and have Max Norman mix it. Now, the production on this thing's very raw. It's definitely night and day production compared to, you know, Diary of a Madman, you know, where Max Norman would take over the production duties. But on here, you know, on Blizzard of Oz, excuse me, it still has that very raw sound to it. It definitely has a 70s production sound to it, still too. It doesn't sound like 80s production at all. You know, that's a notable difference. And of course, you know, this is right in the year 1982 when they're mixing this and putting it together. So yeah, that's pretty notably to mention. Let's just get right into the tracks then. I can't think of anything else I'm missing here. So yeah, let's talk about the tracks real quick. I Don't Know begins the album. It begins with this dark ambient beginning. You know, then it just explodes into pure heavy metal mayhem. You talk about some great riffs by Randy Rhoads here. Excellent riffs, you know, excellent guitar solos. Just showcasing a new era of guitar playing, too, in a way. You know, like Eddie Van Halen and Randy Rhoads were definitely innovators at this time. Definitely guitar gods, too. And made everybody out there want to play guitar. And just shred on guitar, you know. It all came from Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen. But yeah, so yeah, great opener, great guitar work. What can I say? Bob Daisley does some cool bass lines in this track. Excellent drumming by Lee Kerslake, and Ozzy sounds great. Moving on to Crazy Train. Definitely the most known song on this album, the most well-known track on here. You know, the riff is iconic. Everybody knows this track. If you're just starting out on guitar, this is pretty much one of the first things you ever learn on guitar. Rightfully so, it's fucking iconic. Yes, this track probably does suffer from burnout, but it's still iconic because you still hear it on classic rock to this day, you know. But it's great. Lee Kerslake does some very unique drumming on this track. It's got more of a disco type of feel to it, which is very weird. It's like that disco drum beat mixed with these heavy metal speedy riffs, you know, which I think is pretty fucking cool and original sounding for that time, you know. Moving on. So we go into Goodbye to Romance, which is a song Ozzy basically wrote as a goodbye to Black Sabbath, you know, saying basically goodbye to old friends, you know. That's pretty much what that's about. You know, there's a bunch of beautifully layered guitar tracks on this track. I mean, just beautifully layered guitar parts on this track, you know. If you listen to it without the drums and without the bass, it's amazing what Randy Rhoads came up with. It's so beautiful. And to me, I think it'd be impossible to play that as just a single guitar player. You know, there's definitely a lot going on. But it's a gorgeous song, you know. Now, I should have mentioned Crazy Train was released as the first single. Rightfully so. Because originally they were going to release Goodbye to Romance as the first single. I don't think it would have worked. It was definitely right to release Crazy Train first. Yeah, put the heavy track out there first, you know. And it's good they did that, because if they would have put out Goodbye to Romance as a single, this album easily could have flopped, you know. But anyways, moving on, we go into D, which is, you know, D's just a short little acoustic piece that Randy wrote, dedicated to his mother. Gorgeous stuff, you know. It's about 48 seconds long, if I remember correctly. Very gorgeous, very beautiful. Then it goes into the heavy Suicide Solution. You know, very controversial song. You know. Now, there's two stories to what this track's about. Ozzy says it's about Bon Scott. You know, and him dying from alcohol poisoning. Where Bob Daisley claims it's about Ozzy Osbourne's alcohol addiction. Now, it could work either way, to be honest, you know. But anyways, it's an iconic track, too. Very controversial track. It definitely got Ozzy Osbourne in some trouble. You know, there's been suicide attempts because of this track. Yeah. Which, you know, if you believe any of that, if you believe that it's a pro-suicide song, you're a sheeple. It's not a pro-suicide song at all. It's an anti-suicide track. Anyways, tremendous track, great rips. The outro solo Randy Rhoads does is freaking amazing. What more could be said? Moving on. We go to Mr. Crowley. What a freaking epic track Mr. Crowley is. It begins dark, epic, and gothic sounding. You know, very gothic sounding. Don Airey is playing some really awesome keyboard parts in the beginning of this track. Synthesizer parts, whatever you want to call it. It's really, really, really good stuff. then the track gets pretty heavy and dark. You know, probably the track that might come closest to Sabbath, you know. It's just a great track. Again, another track that has a tremendous guitar solo by Randy Rhoads. It's actually my favorite guitar solo on the album. It might be my favorite Randy Rhoads solo, period. It's so good. Moving on to No Bone Movies. Okay, this track to me would be the weakest track on the album. It's still good, don't get me wrong. Now, this is about being in an X-rated movie theater, which I find to be pretty odd. Now, this has a co-writing credit from Lee Kerslake. I think that's why they put it on the album, because they wanted to have something that Lee co-wrote, you know. Which, okay, that's understandable. I mean, the performance on this track's phenomenal. I mean, there's great riffs in the track. Lee does some awesome drumming, especially at the end where he goes into that double bass stuff. It's really cool. But again, you know, it's not one of the stronger tracks on here. I think I would have put You Looking at Me, Looking at You on here instead. But that's just me. Moving on to Revelation Mother Earth. Wow. You talk about an amazing track. You just talk about amazement. Revelation Mother Earth is amazing. Very classical, very orchestrated sounding, you know. It's conducted very well. It's put together very well. It's just a beautiful track. Then when it explodes and becomes heavy at the end, holy cow. Where Randy comes in with that heavy riff and that awesome outro solo again. Holy crap, it's just amazing stuff. And this track, you know, it's about the end of the world. It's basically about the threat of nuclear war, you know. And basically a message, don't destroy this freaking planet. Don't destroy Mother Nature's planet. There's a message behind this track, definitely. Phenomenal stuff. Then it goes into the closer, Still Away the Night. Wow, this track just kicks ass. Heavy metal mastery on this track. It's probably the heaviest track on the album, too. It's just explosive. Probably the heaviest, the fastest. You know, it's definitely explosive. Great lead work by Randy Rhoads. Great drumming by Lee. This track just rules. Just a great way to end a great album, you know. Now, it's my favorite Ozzy Osbourne album. It's not, but it's definitely in my top 5. I forget what I ranked it at in my list, to be honest. I'm going to eventually redo that list, too. I'm not completely confident in my Ozzy Osbourne album ranking video. I'm going to redo it down the road. But it's definitely in my top 5. It's a great album. It's legendary for a reason. It's made many guitar players want to play guitar for a reason. Because it's that damn good. I would definitely give this album a 9 out of 10. Like I said, the production's more 70s style. But the performances on this are just excellent. It's legendary for a reason, like I said. Now, besides You Looking at Me, Looking at You, there is another track that was recorded here. Kind of forget it now. I'm going to look it up quick. I should have it set up, actually. Okay. What is it? Okay, the other track that was recorded around this period was called You Said It All. It was written relatively quick. It would be on the Ozzy Live EP that came out not long afterwards. You could tell it was put together quickly. It's still got cool riffs in it. Now, apparently Ozzy was drunk off his ass while they recorded this track. That could definitely be true, because it's Ozzy Osbourne, you know. I mean, it's an okay track. It definitely wouldn't have fit the album, though. Yes, so that's one of the other tracks that was recorded. And before I leave, this album was reissued back in 2003. Don't get the 2003 reissues. And this is what pissed me off. This is what pissed Ozzy Osbourne off. Ozzy was pissed when Sharon did this. She went in and had Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake's parts removed from the recording. And she had Rob Trujillo come in and Mike Borden come in and redo the bass and drum parts. And at the time, those two were an Ozzy solo band. Terrible, don't get them. Luckily, they did reissue it back in 2010 again, or 2011, with the original parts put back in it. You know, Bob and Lee's parts put back in, which, you know, that's the version I have. I refuse to get that 2003 version. But anyways, just figured I'd put that out there. Stick with the original or stick with the 2011 remaster. That's it for this review. My voice is tired. This has been a long review, I'm pretty sure. But, you know, there's so much to talk about when it comes to this album. Like I said, 9 out of 10. Legendary album. Keep it metal. Stay tuned for more. I got a reaction video coming up later on by request. Should be interesting. Keep it metal.